Today, an 8 GB patch hit for version 277 of Arc, and wondering why, you check the forums and apparently there was a vulnerability fix. Let's read over Jat's post. Hey survivors, recently we have identified a critical exploit in our game that has existed since August 2015. The exploit is known and utilized by the PC, primarily official player base, for quite some time. Today's major version update will resolve the vulnerability and address the issue going forward. We're sorry for the inconvenience with the unexpected major update to version 277, but trust us when we say that the patch needed to happen immediately. Fortunately, we were able to look into those taking advantage of the exploit. Unfortunately, what became apparent is multiple megatribes across multiple servers were taking advantage of it. Under normal circumstances, such an exploit would deem a global tribe wipe and a comprehensive ban for all players involved from our official network, as well as BattleEye protected servers. On this occasion, we have decided that we will be providing a one-time amnesty to everyone involved. This means that no one will be banned or wiped, as the impact of the action would have been too wide scale and have a significant effect on our official servers. For those who took advantage of the exploit, whether your motivations were malicious or to put yourself on even ground, it ends now with a chance of redemption. Please note that this is just a one-time situation, and in the future we will continue to be heavy-handed versus those who have been proven to play unfairly. We know that this decision may come as a surprise. However, we believe it is the best move to make for the health of the game and our official servers. We will be continuing to monitor our servers for cheaters and are currently investing in additional external and internal technical solutions for those playing unfairly, and will do our best to ensure that the Arc remains a fair and competitive environment. Let's look over this. First off, the first thing we see. Identified a critical exploit in our game that has existed since August 2015. This is an exploit that has existed for 2.5 years and they just identified it, but they want to tell us their developers are top-notch. You know, larger games, larger companies have had problems exist since, World of Warcraft had issues that went on years, but they still took care of them, and we ended up, we ended up with a better game. Why is it that this wasn't patched in pre-release, in early access, when you're supposed to patch these things? They just figured it out? What happened? Did they fire the person who was in charge of the coding for this one specific area? I highly doubt it. The exploit was used, known and utilized by the PC player base for quite some time. Okay. Why weren't we warned about this? You see, when an exploit is found in, say, EVE Online, they put out a notice saying, we know about this exploit, and if you use it, you risk account closure. Okay? Every game company pretty much does that. Until they can fix something, they will put out this massive notice and say, it makes it to Reddit, it's pinned on Reddit, it's pinned on the forums, it's pretty much this giant blinking neon sign saying, hey, don't use this exploit, we know about it, we will punish you. So why does a Wildcard do that? Why? We don't know what the exploit is right now. We'll probably never get an official statement from Studio Wildcard. There's a reason for that. Their history of fixing exploits and vulnerabilities in the game is lacking, and that's being generous. They are utterly incapable of fixing the base game. This is why they've shied away from doing it, why their optimizations are not optimizations. We've been promised all this stuff by Jeremy, that the base game would be separated from the tools that modders need to create mods. Hasn't happened yet. We were promised that the biomes would be fixed so that undermeshing would be impossible. Hasn't happened. Let me hold off on that for a second. We've had all these promises. The duping issue, not fixed. Duping still happens. This is confirmed. Several tribes have said this. The biggest one to say it was Spartans when they left. Duping is still happening, not fixed. Now let's go back to the undermeshing. This was an 8.2 gigabyte patch, made smaller if you do not own the DLC. I think what was allegedly fixed has to do with undermeshing, the body bag thing. I think this is the only one that really makes sense because it's been in effect since 2015. That's really the only continuous exploit that I can think of that has been around that long. It's also really the only exploit that the megatribes routinely use. So if it was an undermeshing issue, we should hear about it very quickly. Once again, remember, they said it was utilized by the PC, primarily official player base, for quite some time. What this means is that if you tried it on an official, admins were banning you for it. This really lends credence to this being an undermeshing issue. I'm not saying that's guaranteed, but that is the strongest possibility at this moment. Let's get on to the banning issue. You want this to be a fair and balanced game. You want people to come in to a new server, or you want them to start on equal footing with everybody else starting on the same footing. This exploit was apparently used by pretty much, from what I'm reading here, every mega tribe in the game on official servers. Which means that these tribes used an exploit, gained an unfair advantage against everybody else, and use that to their advantage. What that says to me is that they did not play in the way that was intended, and as such, they should be punished. So why aren't they being punished? There's so many instances of these people engaging in tactics that everybody says is frowned upon. They are engaging in so many tactics that puts everybody else in a negative light, that puts them at an unfair advantage, and you refuse to hold them accountable for it. I want you to think about that for a second, please. These people should be held accountable. At the very least, they should be dev wiped. If it was a duping issue, then a lot of their resources have been obtained unfairly, and as such, they need to lose it. If it's undermeshing, they wiped bases, they obtained items and resources unfairly, they need to be wiped. They need to be put back on the same foot that everybody else started at, because even if they started out fairly, they are progressing unfairly. So why haven't they been punished for it? We know mega tribes are still undermeshing and duping. We've seen the evidence of it, and you are very hesitant to ban them properly, to punish them appropriately. Why? PUBG just banned 1 million accounts for hacking and exploiting. And Studio Wildcard can't get off their asses to ban exploiters? Think about that for a second, will you? What do you think about that? But what do we expect from a company that is looking forward to the next DLC that they can shove down our throats and try to make us buy? Aberration was maybe it was a commercial success, but it's a critical flop. I mean, all it did was add some shiny creatures to the game. It made the game darker, and it added some items. It didn't add anything new to the base game. It didn't make anything more interesting. All it did was add a couple of things that are lackluster at best, not worth $20. All the while, critical issues continue to be in the base game because they make money by doing DLC. They don't make money by fixing the game. And now that they are between DLCs, they'll start doing little patches like this TLC patch, which I'll admit I'm kind of excited about the TLC patch, but I'm not holding my breath that it's going to do anything substantial. They're trying to obfuscate what's going on. We as players and as consumers need to be more demanding of Wildcard and holding their feet to the fire. They don't care unless a lot of people start making noise and we start talking by not logging in. It sucks, doesn't it? It sucks that the only way we can get them to listen to us is by not logging in and putting everything we spent days, weeks, months on the line to lose because we're not logging in. Let the megatribes have their little fun wiping their servers. Eventually they just get bored because nobody's rebuilding. This is why people go to unofficial. If the only people playing on official servers are the megatribes and people aren't logging in, Ark falls off that list of most played games. And what does Studio Wildcard have to do? They actually have to come to the player base and say, mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. How can we get you all to log back in and start playing? And then we can use that to our advantage. But until that happens, Studio Wildcard's not going to listen. And they made that very clear. Jeremy makes all these glorious promises in the community crunches and the Ark Digest, but he never follows through on them. There are huge issues that exist today. And there are promises he made years ago that he's never followed through on. He's never had an intention of following through on. He pussyfoots around about everything and makes promises and never follows through. If we want this game to be fixed, we have to be willing to bite the bullet. We saw this happen with EVE Online during the whole Monocle Gate fiasco when people mass unsubscribed. Suddenly they could see that they were going to lose money and they were going to lose players, and they couldn't have that. Studio Wildcard can be held to the same standard, and we can do the exact same thing to punish them, to make them listen to the player base finally. Let's talk about the last thing. Allegedly, some of the megatribes have been given the ability to turn azelberries, the blueberries, into metal. I'm saying allegedly because I haven't been able to independently confirm this. If it can be, however, and this was done by a developer, we have a problem. This is like the T20 episode in EVE Online, where a developer gave his alliance Tier 2, Tech 2 blueprints, BPOs, Blueprint Originals, to just mass produce what they wanted. And this was unheard of. This led to a huge schism between the player base and the developers. It led to CCP Games redoing how internal affairs worked. It really just did everything possible to destroy the trust of the players with the developers. If this is the case, it's no different, because once again, the megatribes are no longer playing on an even footing as everybody else. In fact, it kind of tells me that they want the megatribes to start fighting each other, and the megatribes refuse to. I don't know. I'm going to look into it a little more. But keep in mind that they're not going to fix anything until we actually stand up and say, this needs to stop. You need to take this seriously. If we want that to happen, we have to bite the bullet. We have to stop logging in. We need to hold them to a standard that they refuse to hold themselves to. Because if they see that between DLCs, players aren't going to log in, they're not going to risk not selling the DLCs. They're going to do what they can to draw us back in. They've lied to us plenty before. Absolutely. And it'll take time for them to prove that they can be trusted again. Do I think a critical exploit was fully fixed? No. Do I think they may have located it and they tried to? Yeah, I do. But until I see until I know what that exploit is and I see that it actually has been fixed, I won't hold my breath.